Hello and welcome back to the Caffeinated Musings Podcast, where we sip on bold ideas and share thoughtful reflections to empower you. Today we're diving into one of the most fragile yet powerful currencies in the world, trust. Trust is something we all navigate daily, whether we're leading teams, building relationships, or just interacting with others. It's the foundation of leadership and the glue in personal and professional connections. What we should always be aware of, though, is while trust is essential, it's also incredibly delicate. One misstep can undo years of consistency and goodwill. I've always considered myself a trusting person. I genuinely like people, most people. I've always believed in people's potential and goodness. After all, societies thrive on trust. It's in the way we collaborate, support each other, and build connections. But, like many of you, I've learned that once someone breaks that trust, it's incredibly hard for me to rebuild it. Why? Because trust isn't just a nice feeling. It's a system that requires care and effort to maintain. Let me share a story. A few years ago, I worked with someone on a project that was, honestly, mission critical. This person was responsible for a key piece of the puzzle. At first, everything seemed fine. Updates were vague, but reassuring. Then came the deadline, and the work barely started. They had been sitting on the issue for weeks, avoiding the tough conversations. It wasn't the missed deadline that got me. It was the lack of transparency. From that moment on, everything changed. I second-guessed their input, struggled to trust their updates, and honestly, our working relationship never fully recovered. Can you relate to that? One slip, one moment of lost transparency, and the dynamic shifts. That's the power and fragility of trust. And that's what we're unpacking today. Why it's essential, how to build it, and what to do when it's broken. So stick with me, because this is going to be a valuable conversation. Let's start with the obvious question. Why is trust so important? Think about the most impactful relationships or teams you've been a part of. What made them stand out? Was it the skill sets involved, the charisma of the leader, or the shared vision? Those are important, sure, but at the heart of it all was likely trust. Trust makes collaboration intuitive, communication effortless, and progress feel natural. In leadership, trust is the difference between a team that follows a leader because they believe in the mission versus one that complies out of obligation. A trusted leader doesn't just command results. They inspire loyalty, creativity, and resilience. Without trust, people second-guess motives, hesitate to share ideas, and disengage emotionally. It creates a brittle foundation that cracks under pressure. The same applies to personal relationships. Trust is what deepens connections and allows us to be vulnerable. Without it, even the strongest bonds can erode into doubt and defensiveness. Here's something fascinating. Neuroscientists have discovered that trust activates the brain's reward systems, the same ones triggered by comforting things like chocolate or a warm hug. This isn't just poetic, it's biological. When trust exists, it creates a sense of safety, and safety fosters connection. This is why teams with high levels of trust often report feeling more engaged and motivated. Their brains are literally rewarding them for the environment they're in. Studies also show that trust can reduce stress levels. When you trust someone, your body releases less cortisol, the stress hormone. This means trust doesn't just help you emotionally, it has measurable benefits for your health and well-being. Imagine the ripple effect this has in leadership and relationships. When people trust their leader or partner, they're not just more willing to collaborate. They're healthier, happier, and more likely to succeed together. And here's another layer to consider. Trust has an evolutionary purpose. Anthropologists suggest that early human survival depended on trust within groups, sharing resources, protecting each other from predators, and working together. None of this would have been possible without trust. It's not just a modern concept, it's deeply ingrained in who we are as social beings. That's what makes trust so powerful. It's not only the foundation of relationships and teams, but also a fundamental part of our biology and history. When trust is present, people thrive. When it's absent, we struggle. So, how do you build trust? Think of it like planting a garden. You can't just toss seeds into the dirt and expect a full bloom overnight. It's a slow process, requiring care and consistency. Building trust starts with honesty, and honesty is more than just telling the truth. It's about aligning your words and actions. People need to see that your commitments match your behaviors. Think about this. When a leader says, "My team's well-being is my priority," but repeatedly overlooks their input or dismisses concerns, trust begins to erode. In personal relationships, honesty means being transparent about your feelings and intentions. For instance, if a friend cancels plans but avoids explaining why, the lack of openness can lead to suspicion. On the other hand, simply saying, "I need some time to recharge," builds understanding and trust. Honesty also involves difficult conversations. It's about having the courage to say what needs to be said, even when it's uncomfortable. When you're upfront about your limitations or challenges, people respect that. It shows integrity. Consistency is another cornerstone. Trust isn't built on grand gestures, but on a track record of reliability. Imagine a colleague who always delivers on deadlines and follows through on commitments. Over time, you stop doubting their capabilities because their actions speak louder than words. Now apply this to personal relationships. Consistency in small actions, like checking in regularly or consistently showing emotional availability and support when it matters most, such as being present during challenging times or offering a listening ear when someone needs it, reinforces trust. Think of a friend or a partner who consistently makes an effort to ask how your day went. These simple, dependable actions create a sense of security that allows relationships to deepen. In leadership, consistency means showing up for your team every day, not just when it's convenient. It's these ongoing, reliable efforts that build unshakable foundations. Active listening plays a huge role in trust building. When people feel genuinely heard, they feel valued. This goes beyond just nodding along in a conversation. It's about fully engaging, asking thoughtful questions, and responding in ways that show you understand. For example, in a workplace setting, imagine a manager who not only listens to their team's concerns, but also acts on them. Unfortunately, that's being considered a game changer nowadays. But applying it shows that their listening effort isn't just passive. It's a step toward meaningful action. In personal relationships, active listening can bridge gaps in understanding and strengthen emotional connections. Think of a friend who listens without interrupting, who follows up on what you've shared, and who offers thoughtful support. That level of attentiveness makes you feel seen, heard, and appreciated. When people feel like their voice matters, trust blossoms. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're managing a team, and one of your colleagues suggests an idea in a meeting. Instead of brushing it off or redirecting the conversation, you acknowledge it. Even if the idea isn't viable, taking the time to hear them out builds trust. It shows you respect their contribution, and that respect is reciprocal. Trust also grows through accountability. Owning your mistakes is powerful. It's not just about protecting your image. It's about demonstrating integrity and respect for the relationship or the team. Think about a time when someone in your life admitted they were wrong. Didn't that vulnerability deepen your respect for them? That's the magic of accountability. It humanizes us. In leadership, accountability means acknowledging when a decision didn't pan out and being transparent about the lessons learned. For example, a manager who admits, "I miscalculated the project timeline and here's how I plan to fix it," earns more trust than one who shifts blame. This creates a culture where team members feel safe owning up to their own missteps, knowing they won't be unfairly judged. In personal relationships, accountability is just as transformative. Imagine promising a friend you'll support them through a tough time, but then missing a key moment they needed you. Accountability means owning that lapse, saying, "I wasn't there when you needed me, and I'm truly sorry for letting you down." That simple act of acknowledgement can open the door to healing and rebuilding trust. Accountability isn't easy. It requires humility, self-awareness, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But the payoff? Stronger teams, deeper connections, and a foundation that can weather challenges. Let's talk about the compounding nature of trust. Morgan Housel, in his book Same as Ever, captures this beautifully. Growth is driven by compounding, which always takes time. Destruction is driven by single points of failure, which can happen in seconds, and loss of confidence, which can happen in an instant. Think about that for a moment. Trust builds like compound interest. Every small, consistent action, every honest conversation, every promise kept adds another layer. Over time, those layers form something solid and enduring. Mahatma Gandhi's ability to inspire trust during India's fight for independence wasn't built overnight. It was years of unwavering commitment to nonviolence, transparency in his intentions, and consistency in his actions that solidified his followers' trust. People believed in him because he proved time and again that he would lead by example, even when the stakes were unimaginably high. But imagine if Gandhi had suddenly deviated from his principles. That single breach could have shattered the movement's foundation. Now think about trust in our daily lives. Imagine a friend who always checks in, supports you in tough times, and celebrates your wins, even the small ones. Over time, you don't just trust them. You rely on them. You've built something solid. But what happens if they betray that trust in a moment of dishonesty? It's not just about the lie. It's about how that lie undermines everything that came before it. Trust, like compounding growth, thrives on consistency. It's those little, unseen moments, a leader who gives credit to their team instead of taking it themselves, a partner who remembers the smallest details that matter to you, or a manager who follows through on every commitment. These aren't grand gestures, but over time, they create something powerful. A foundation of trust so strong that it can withstand challenges. But be cautious. All it takes is one breach, one moment of dishonesty or neglect to bring the whole structure crashing down. In leadership, this might look like a leader who consistently supports their team, but suddenly prioritizes personal gain over collective goals. That single misstep can undo years of trust building. In personal relationships, imagine a partner who has always been reliable, but breaks a promise when it matters most. The disappointment isn't just about the broken promise. It's about what it represents. A crack in the foundation of trust. Trust requires patience and persistence. You can't rush it, you can't shortcut it, and yet the rewards are exponential. A team that trusts its leader is willing to take risks, innovate, and go the extra mile. A relationship built on trust fosters deeper connections and resilience against life's challenges. The paradox of trust is this. While it takes time to grow, it can disappear in the blink of an eye. But when nurtured, its value is immeasurable. Building trust is one thing. Maintaining it is another. Trust isn't something you can set and forget. It requires ongoing care and attention, much like tending to a garden. The weeds of miscommunication, neglect, and inconsistency can quickly choke it if left unchecked. Proactive communication is one of the most effective ways to sustain trust. This isn't just about saying the right things. It's about fostering a two-way dialogue where both parties feel heard. In leadership, this might mean regular check-ins with your team, not just to discuss progress, but to understand their challenges and concerns. In personal relationships, it's about being present in conversations, asking meaningful questions, and truly listening to the answers. Clear expectations are another cornerstone of maintaining trust. Ambiguity breeds doubt. If you're a leader, be explicit about your vision and what you expect from your team. If you're in a personal relationship, communicate your needs and boundaries openly. When expectations are clear, people know where they stand, and that clarity fosters confidence. And of course, consistency remains key. It's the daily, intentional acts that show you value the trust you've built. This might look like following through on commitments, no matter how small. In a personal context, it could be something as simple as showing up when you said you would. These actions might seem insignificant in isolation, but collectively, they reinforce trust over time. Breaking trust is easy, too easy. A single lie, a moment of betrayal, or even a lapse in communication can shatter it. The emotional aftermath often includes lingering resentment, a quiet, almost invisible force that corrodes the relationship over time. Even if things seem to return to normal, unresolved hurt can resurface in subtle ways, like passive-aggressive behavior or reluctance to fully engage. In leadership, when trust is broken, it can lead to disengagement, lower morale, and even turnover. A team that once thrived under a trusted leader might begin to question every decision, every motive. In personal relationships, broken trust can feel like a gut punch. It's not just about the action that caused the breach, it's about the emotional aftermath. Doubt creeps in, walls go up, and even if the relationship continues, it's often with an undercurrent of suspicion. Let's circle back to the story I shared earlier about my colleague who failed to communicate about their incomplete work. The ripple effects weren't limited to our working relationship. It affected the entire team. Deadlines became more stressful. Collaboration felt strained. That one moment of lost transparency created a domino effect, impacting not just me, but everyone involved. Trust isn't just about individual relationships, it's about ecosystems. When it's broken, the consequences spread like cracks in a windshield. Small at first, but growing if left unaddressed. Think of trust as a porcelain vase, built with care, capable of holding immense beauty, but once cracked, even the most skillful repair will leave visible scars. Those scars may serve as a reminder of the damage, making the relationship feel fragile even after attempts to rebuild it. And that's why maintaining trust is so critical. It's not just about avoiding damage, it's about preserving the integrity of the entire structure. Now that we've explored the fragility of trust and the damage its loss can cause, let's talk about something hopeful. Repairing trust. Yes, it's difficult, and yes, it takes time, but it's not impossible. Rebuilding trust starts with a simple yet profound step. Acknowledging the damage. Often the person whose trust you've broken just wants to feel seen and heard. Acknowledging what happened and the impact it had is the first signal that you're serious about making amends. Take, for instance, a leader who failed to back up their team during a critical moment. The first step isn't justification or excuses. It's saying, I let you down, and I understand the consequences this has had on our team dynamic. That acknowledgement lays the groundwork for the next steps. A sincere apology comes next. It's not just about saying, I'm sorry, it's about meaning it. A genuine apology communicates that you understand the weight of your actions and regret them. For example, instead of a vague, I'm sorry if I hurt you, say, I'm sorry that my actions caused you to feel undervalued. That was never my intention, and I take full responsibility. The difference is night and day. Once you've apologized, it's time to take corrective action. Words alone aren't enough. Actions speak louder. If you've broken trust by missing deadlines or failing to communicate, make a visible effort to improve. Show consistency in delivering on your promises. In relationships, this might mean showing up more actively, being emotionally present, or making amends in ways that matter to the other person. Patience and consistency are the final keys. Trust doesn't bounce back overnight. It's earned little by little through everyday actions. Demonstrating reliability over time rebuilds the bridge that was broken. Think of trust repair as creating a mosaic. Every small act is a tile, and together they form a picture of accountability and care. Consider the story of a manager who, after a breach of trust, made a point to check in regularly with their team, openly share updates, and follow through on every commitment, no matter how minor. Over time, the team not only regained trust, but became stronger than before, because the leader's actions showed they had truly learned and grown from the mistake. In personal relationships, trust repair might look like setting new boundaries and adhering to them consistently. Imagine a friend who forgot a deeply important promise. Rebuilding that trust could involve showing up for smaller commitments consistently, proving that the lapse was an exception rather than the rule. But what about when loyalty itself is broken? Loyalty is the ultimate manifestation of trust, and when it's betrayed, the damage cuts deeply. Rebuilding broken loyalty requires even more effort and intentionality. It starts with acknowledging not just the act, but the deeper sense of betrayal. Repairing broken loyalty involves consistent actions that show unwavering commitment moving forward. It's about being present in ways that prove the relationship still matters deeply. For example, if a friend felt let down during a pivotal moment in their life, demonstrating loyalty might mean not just showing up for big events, but being there consistently in their everyday struggles and joys. Loyalty, when restored, can strengthen a bond far beyond what it was before, showing that even fractured trust can lead to a more profound connection. Let's revisit the story I shared at the start of this episode about the colleague who broke my trust by failing to communicate about incomplete work. That experience taught me something invaluable. Repairing trust isn't just about what the other person does to make things right. It's also about what we choose to do with the situation. For me, it meant reevaluating how I set expectations and creating an environment where transparency was the norm, not an afterthought. Here's the takeaway. Trust, while fragile, is one of the most valuable investments you can make in both leadership and relationships. It's the currency that makes everything else possible. And when it's broken, repairing it's hard, but not impossible. It requires humility, patience, and consistent effort. But the rewards, they're worth every bit of the work. So, I challenge you today. Think about the trust in your life. Where is it thriving? Where is it fractured? And what steps can you take, starting right now, to nurture or rebuild it? Thank you for spending your time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. And if you think someone in your life could benefit from these insights, share this episode with them. Trust me, you never know how far a little inspiration can go. Until next time, I wish you a fulfilling day and an incredible week ahead.